Well, hello, everyone. My name is Ben Ramirez, and on behalf of the World Affairs Council of Austin, I welcome you all to another collaborative effort with the Kozmetsky Center of Excellence in Global Finance at St. Edward's University. Thank you to the center's director, Dr. Cheryl Cross, for your partnership in these forums. In addition, we'll have several members of the community with us and Professor Mortada Mohammed's International Marketing Group. Today's program, offering us more information on the Republic of Georgia's society and economy, will cover topics of interest to many business executives in Central Texas. After our guest presentation, we'll open up to a roundtable for you to directly ask your questions at around 12:35. Today's discussion is intended to help us all understand the importance of furthering the existing partnership between the Republic of Georgia and the USA. I'm pleased to introduce our featured speaker, who gained his experience by working for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, where he was part of the project management team leading the economic rehabilitation program in the conflict zones of Georgia. Later, he served as the first secretary at the Republic of Georgia's embassy. That was from 2012 to 2016, after which he was ambassador at large at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Georgia and served as counselor at the Embassy of Georgia to the United States of America. In February of 2020, he was appointed as the Consul General of Georgia in San Francisco. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Consul General Levan Beridze. Thank you, Consul General.
Thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate the introduction, the detailed introduction, the kind introduction that you've done. I would like to start out by thanking the Kozmetsky Center of Excellence at St. Edward's University, of course, the World Affairs Council in Austin for putting this forum together, and special thanks to Dr. Cheryl Cross, Mortada Mohammed, of course, and Ben, to you for inviting me, and of course for hosting me here today. As you said in your introduction, I've been in the diplomatic service for quite some time. I spent about 8 years with the embassy prior to taking my post here in San Francisco, working on economic affairs, primarily on the private sector, and then the last kind of the economic policy and trade policy with the United States, because one of our top priorities is to increase trade cooperation between the United States and Georgia. As you said, I mean, we by the end of 2018-19, we decided that we needed to expand our representations within the United States, because right now we have the embassy in Washington, D.C., and our consulate general in New York, and our permanent mission at the United Nations in New York as well. So we looked for different locations, and I think during that time, because of the diaspora in California, the decision was made to open a consulate in San Francisco. We opened in 2020, as you said, not a best time to open a new office anywhere. I came here in February, and in about 3 weeks, everything shut down. So we had to work in a very emergency state, kind of opening the consulate, getting everything ready. But we were still able to get the consulate up and running, and we officially opened in 2020, in October of 2020. It is the first representation of Georgia on the West Coast. And I joke about if I don't do a good job, I'll still go down in history as the first Consul General of Georgia in San Francisco. So we'll see how it goes, though. Our consulate here covers 19 states, so we have a lot of work to do. We have a 5-person staff here, a great team of people, and so I'm very lucky to have such a team to work together on some economic cooperation and cultural education and so on. Let me just dive in. I mean, I'll go through I want to talk about Georgia a little bit, and then I'll dive into the economic presentation. As you can imagine, the main objective of our consulate general is to protect and promote the rights and interests of our citizens here in the U.S. But in addition, one of our top priorities is to increase and expand the economic, educational, and cultural cooperation between our two countries, especially with the states of the Western U.S., as I mentioned, the ones we cover. We achieve this through active engagement with our diaspora, educational institutions around the U.S., and with the private sector representatives ranging from investments and VC funds to manufacturing, agricultural, trade, and logistics companies, and so on and so on. I mean, just basically finding the right fit between the private sectors here, between the public sectors here, and the public and private sectors in Georgia. Our job is to support Georgian, like I said now, Georgian private sector in expanding to the U.S. market and gaining access to the resources that are available here, and of course, vice versa, introducing U.S. companies to the incentives that are available in Georgia. As I mentioned, I have a presentation talking about the economic aspect and the current business environment in Georgia. However, before we get to that, I would like to start out by introducing Georgia as a country to our audience here and briefly highlight the long history and rich cultural heritage that we really enjoy. Georgia is a small country. I would say if we had to compare, it's in size of South Carolina, but it is strategically located on the crossroads of Europe and Asia, which throughout history contributed to building a unique cultural heritage that we have today. Historically, Georgia has been a cultural, educational, and transportation hub for the Caucasus region. With some of the most famous trade routes like the Silk Road, passing on its soil. Georgia is a very old country with its statehood dating back 3,000 years. I mean, Georgia is older than that, the location and the tribes that were there, but the peoples that were there. But the statehood goes back 3,000 years to the 8th century BC. With basically the creation of two kingdoms, which was Colchis and Iberia, the east and west parts of Georgia. And if you remember the story of Jason and the Argonauts and the Golden Fleece was actually kept in Colchis before Jason and his buddies stole it from us. So, diving into where we are right now, last 70 years before the breakup of the Soviet Union, Georgia was part of the USSR. But I want to skip through that because Georgia really during that time wasn't on the path of development that it wanted to be on. So I would say that, fast forwarding through the Soviet era, we come to Georgia now as the emerging economy with a strong democratic base, with strong democratic institutions. Since the breakup of the Soviet Union, Georgia has implemented a lot of democratic reforms to strengthen, again, its institutions, to create a liberal economy, and several times has been referred to by several U.S. administrations as the beacon of democracy in the region. Actually, it's important that this year marks 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Georgia and the U.S. And I think in those 30 years, the last decade, U.S. and Georgia have enjoyed strategic partnership between the countries. Now, as a reliable partner in the region, we are a NATO aspirant country with the second largest non-NATO contribution to the Allied forces in Afghanistan and Iraq. And we were working on becoming part of the European Union. And you might recall that Georgia signed an association agreement with the European Union, which also includes a free trade agreement with the European Union. So it brings us closer to joining the Western alliances as they stand today. With the situation today, I mean, there's many obstacles that stand in our way, which, as we see now, are very threatening. And there are certain powers that threaten the territorial integrity of Georgia and other countries in the region, as we see in the face of Russia and its aggression toward a sovereign Ukraine. And I do want to say that hopefully the whole world will unite against this aggression, and Georgia certainly stands with Ukraine in solidarity and in support of its territorial integrity and sovereignty. And we stand with Ukraine for sure. Now I kind of want to dive into the economic side and give you an idea what Georgia has accomplished economically since its independence and where it stands right now. I have a few slides, as I mentioned. This was an economic presentation. I won't go deep into the economic details, and we can definitely kind of go over in the Q&A if need be. But I'll highlight some of the economic, points that I think should be interesting for our audience today. As you see, I think everybody can see my screen, right? The shared presentation. So I'll just dive in to the presentation. As all countries around the world, we try to showcase our country wherever we have a chance, and it is important to highlight the unique aspect of Georgia. Again, that is attractive, especially from the economic perspective. So what are some of the attributes that make Georgia attractive or even unique, right? As you can see here, the location on the map, it is located on the crossroads, as I mentioned before, between Asia and Europe. And this plays a very strategic role in the trade and transit corridor between East and West. It is one of the least tax-burdened countries in the world. Georgia ranks 7th as the easiest place of doing business. As you can see here, that Georgia is a small country, as I mentioned before, with 3.7 million population, but the preferential trade regimes and preferential market access that we have pretty much expands that market to 2.4 billion market, including the EU, CIS, EFTA, China, and more. And I'll get into that a little more when we move to other slides. And Georgia, prides itself on a well-educated and skilled workforce. We have several U.S. universities that have branches there, one of them being the San Diego State University. I think that the right approach is to focus on education, on STEM education, vocational training, and so on, and that I think that Georgia is really focusing its efforts on. Here is, this is a slide that we'd like to show, how Georgia looks. Where is it? You can see the different countries around it. It sits on the coast of the Black Sea and borders Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia on the north. When I mentioned earlier, Georgia constantly expands its logistics and transit potential through new infrastructure projects and logistics, transportation, and energy. And there's, you can see some of them here. You can see here that, the Georgia has 3 international airports, 3 ports, railway lines, and of course, main highways connecting it to its neighbors. Below here, there are some of the statistics that show how big Georgia's economy is and what to look for. I would highlight the FDI to GDP ratio, which is 8.3% and is actually a high rate compared to the countries in Eastern Europe, in Europe even, and so on. So I think that that shows that it is an interesting market for foreign direct investment. We can see here, I would highlight the share of reinvestments, which is the 44.6%, which shows that initial investments turn out to continue reinvesting in Georgia. And I would say that noteworthy is the real GDP growth here, which has hit double digits since the pandemic, and which really shows that this growth rate is actually pretty high. So which shows that the pandemic, even though there was a serious consequences of the pandemic and we were hit pretty badly, it shows that the country is bouncing back and trying to revitalize its economy and so on. So let's go further here. There's a lot I can be saying, but I wanted to include this slide. This is international standings of Georgia from different rating agencies. And you can see here, the trace matrix puts Georgia first, where it shows that the interaction, contact with the government, between people in the government, where it stands. I mean, Georgia ranks 29th in the overall standings out of 194 countries and first in our region. The safety index here from Numbeo, you can see Georgia is 10th in overall standards, and Georgia ranks third in Europe. And so on. So just some of the ratings here that you can look over in this slide. I think that the World Justice Project also down here, you can see that the Rule of Law Index in 2020 in Eastern Europe and Central Asia region, Georgia ranks first. And seventh in the group of upper middle income countries and 42nd in overall rankings, which is a great result, I think, for Georgia, which shows that within the international community, the perception of Georgia is very good, and a lot of people and a lot of companies, this is reassuring again when we talk to them and we try to convince them to look at Georgia as a great destination. Here's another slide that actually compares Georgia's, different procedures with OECD high income countries averages. And you can see here, I mentioned that Georgia is 7th in the ease of doing business ranking by the World Bank. And I think, these are some of the, when you look at the methodology and go into the details, you can see here, it takes 1 day to start a business in Georgia, when it's 9.2 days in a high income OECD countries. Registering a property 1 day, getting construction permits 63 days, getting electricity 71 days, number of tax payments per year only 5, and they're all fixed. And I'll get into the taxes as well. Time to export, it's 6 hours, like the border procedures and so on, right? The customs procedures, I mean. So this really shows where we are and how we're investing a lot into the development of the country's economy and making sure the processes are there and the environment in Georgia is there to make sure that the companies are attracted to our country, our region, and basically choose Georgia to be their destination for further expansion. Here's another slide, where Georgia's location is, but from the perspective of trade and transportation. Georgia makes the entire continent easily accessible. As you look at the map, it shows the transportation times to Europe and Asia from Georgia, and you can reach anywhere. It's such a centrally located position that it can reach any destination within the radius, as you see here, within several hours, several days by car and train. So, which really, it's a great incentive for companies to look at Georgia as well. Again, it's a 3.7 million market. However, if we take into account free trade agreements we have with all CIS countries, we have a free trade agreement, as I mentioned, with the European Union, with EFTA countries, with the United Kingdom, with Turkey and Ukraine. And we are one of the few countries that, not so recently anymore, but signed a free trade agreement with China. So the market size all of a sudden just grew to 2.4 billion. And I think that for companies that are in manufacturing, it is very interesting for them to manufacture products in Georgia and export it to those countries, which is going to be tariff-free. Basically, the preferential trade regimes, allow Georgia to exchange goods and services with minimized or no tariffs at all, and again, making it attractive for foreign companies that are looking to expand internationally and access these markets through Georgia. Essentially, look at Georgia. Georgia acts as a gateway for many directions. Gateway for our partners, for our partnering countries, for the companies from our partnering countries. Here's one slide that I won't focus too long on. This is the tax incentive that Georgia offers. This is just the breakdown of the tax system, and then I'll tell you what the incentives are. But to attract companies, you have to provide incentives, right? And creating attractive tax regulations and offering government support to companies definitely works. We have abolished taxes on reinvested capital, meaning if you don't take money out in the form of dividends and capital gains tax, then the tax becomes zero. And even if you do, the personal income taxes for interest, dividends, and royalties is just 5%. Other taxes are very attractive as well. As you see here, the property tax is in Georgia is less than 1%. The personal income tax is 20%, but it's fixed and does not change based on your income and the import. Based on your input. And the import tax is 0, 5, or 12% based on the goods being imported, what goods are coming into the country. But most of the products have 0% tax coming into the country. Again, to further incentivize the companies to start their business in Georgia or even to expand there, the government offers many programs in support of the private sector, such as further reducing taxes for companies in certain sectors, such as the IT sector, or offering land. You can see here land and buildings for manufacturing companies free of charge, providing FDI grants for certain electronics, auto and aircraft parts manufacturers, BPO companies, and many others. And I mean, it can be discussed case by case and seeing what the strategic importance is for the companies to come in. And of course, the free industrial zones throughout Georgia provide many incentives of companies to set up their shops there and operate under the more reduced tax. Now, I promise that's it for the economic topics. I'll go into another one of my favorite slides overall, and one of my favorite topics. It's there are many sectors of strategic economic development, but for the purposes of our presentation today, I wanted to mention the tourism sector and why it has been booming before the pandemic. And here are some of the reasons that I think that everyone should visit Georgia. Starting with number one, it is a birthplace of wine. I don't know if everybody here knew, but Georgia, as we Georgians refer to it, it's a cradle of wine. Georgia is considered to be the oldest country in the world to cultivate vine and ferment grapes to produce wine, dating back 8,000 years. So, the recent evidence shows that we are the oldest country now, unless somebody else finds the older evidence. We hold that position for now. So let's see how that goes. Georgia has its own unique culture, alphabet, and cuisine. Even though it's very small, every little part of Georgia has its own unique cuisine, and it's very diverse. So a lot of people, a lot of tourists, when they come to Georgia, they enjoy tasting different foods in Georgia. So I would strongly encourage that as well. Georgian alphabet is among the 14 existing alphabets known to mankind, and the oldest known inscriptions date back to the 5th century. Georgia is, full of UNESCO World Heritage Sites, one of which is actually the highest settlement in Europe, Ushguli. And as I mentioned, the winemaking method has also been recognized to be part of the UNESCO heritage. The method, which is fermenting grapes in the clay vessel that goes underground. That is the traditional method of wine making. And it is, we still today use that method to produce some of the Georgian wines, and you can actually get them in the United States, which is quite nice. And I hope that the exports of Georgian wine will increase to the United States, so everyone can have a chance to taste the wines. One of the, if you look at 7, it's the remains of the first European civilization were discovered in Georgia, dating back 1.8 million years. And this is something that you can also see and learn about when in Georgia. And of course, some of my favorite ones, the 8, 9, and 10 is basically the great flora and fauna and the resorts in Georgia that you can, you can go and visit. I mean, if you like skiing, there's a lot of skiing resorts. If you just like to hang out in the summer on the coast of the sea, the Black Sea offers a lot of tourist attractions there. And of course, I mean, everything from hiking and backpacking through Georgia to actually, coming and having a luxury stay there. This slide shows, before the pandemic, and to give you an idea, in 2019, we hosted 9.4 million visitors in a country of 3.7 million. And that number has increased since the country developed and offered, safety, offered, attractions in the country. Now people are continuing to come to Georgia to visit and to discover it, so to say. We hope, the numbers went down during the pandemic, but we hope that we will bounce back again and the numbers will continue to increase. And, when you come, you will have the opportunity, as I was mentioning, to enjoy the famous Georgian hospitality and stay comfortably in one of any international and local brands throughout Georgia, whether you want to choose luxury or you want to choose, small boutique Georgian hotels and the hospitality that they offer throughout Georgia. I think this is pretty much what I wanted to say. Before finishing up, again, for the purposes of our discussion today, I would like to go back and highlight the importance of our mission here in the United States and why it is important that we build strong cooperation between Georgia and the US, and in particular, the states that we cover, such as Texas. And let me say that Texas is among the priority states where we strive to increase our collaboration with the private and public sectors, and we'll look forward to many more interactions since now our Consulate General is here to be more active in that sense. We recently had a wonderful visit to Texas where we were able to meet with the representatives of the state and local government and the representatives of the private sector and discuss the possibilities for increasing trade, obviously in the traditional ways, and business ties between Georgia and the state. I do want to mention before I finish up here that Georgia for the past decade has established and continues to strengthen its innovation and technology ecosystem to foster the development of startups and provide the best environment for the companies to develop and expand internationally for Georgian companies. And I think that, we realize that in today's world, we have to venture into this new era of tech development and base our integration on the best practices from around the world. We certainly see the rapid development of Texas overall in many different aspects, and especially Austin in terms of tech and innovation. And one of our top objectives will be to build a strong relationship with all stakeholders in Texas, in Austin, to allow Georgian companies to gain access to the vast resources that are available here and work to support U.S. companies, obviously, companies looking to expand internationally to find their next destination to be Georgia. thank you very much again for inviting me. Thank you very much for allowing me to kind of give you an overview of Georgia. I really appreciate it, and I look forward, to working with the university, to working with the Kozmetsky Center, working with the World Affairs Council to, further increase our cooperation and strengthen the partnership between organizations, the public and the private sectors of our countries. If I may ask, before the Q&A, I have a video I would like to show, but I have to stop the share, Ben, and then reshare the screen again with the video. So let me do that real quick. It's a 3-minute video of basically aerial shots of Georgia, just to give you an idea what Georgia looks like, other than on the slides and, and on the photos. So here, let me do this, and then I'll share the screen of the video. And I can narrate. This is the old cap. Oh, well, this is the capital of Georgia, Tbilisi. This is our Justice Hall. This is the main square. We hosted UEFA Champions League final in Georgia as well. This is the old capital, the monastery here in the 5th century. This is the coastal city of Batumi, Black Sea, and it very rarely snows there. And so this person was able to capture it with his shots there. Again, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that a little bit, and I hope I wasn't too boring during my presentation.
Not at all. Thank you so much, Consul General Beridze. We really appreciate that overview that you provided us, and the video was fantastic as well. I could hear a little bit of what you were saying related to visiting your favorite visit location during the summer and the winter time, but I didn't catch where it was.
So yeah, so I can briefly tell you. So Georgia is a four season destination, right? I mean, depending on what you want to do, and you saw from the video, there's a lot of things you can do. Especially being having such a long history. There's a lot of monuments you can see. There's a lot of heritage. I mean, part of the UNESCO heritage sites that you can go visit, which can be done throughout any time of the year. But there's also specific things that you can do. One is the skiing that you can do. It's in the Gudauri, there's Bakuriani, there is Tetlundi. There's a lot of ski resorts in Georgia that you can go in the western part and closer to the capital that you can enjoy great skiing, the portion of the price that compared to some of the other well-known other skiing resorts. In the summer, if you decide to go in the summer, there's also an option of going to Batumi or any of the towns on the coast of the Black Sea, which is the western part of Georgia, to enjoy, nightlife, going to the beach, enjoying the sea, not worrying about the sharks. And overall, just spending a time with the family there. I love to go to the sea because now I have kids. When it's a little bit quieter on the nightlife scene, which is what we call the velvet season, which is probably the September. And then if you go to visit the coast on the west side in September, you can also enjoy in the fall coming back to the east side, which is the wine producing region of Georgia, and enjoy the harvest and all the festivities that come along with it. Do wine tastings and things like that. So even though, again, a small country, there's a lot to see, going to the mountains, going to the different sites and so on. So yeah, the Batumi Kobuleti, the western side, Ajara is what it's called, where the Black Sea is. Unfortunately, 20% of the territory that is occupied by Russia was one of the most famous also destinations in Georgia, Abkhazia. We again, like I said, it's under the occupation of the Russian forces still. I mean, it's very safe to be in Georgia, but within our territorial integrity and sovereignty, I mean, it's a hard task for us to see that region being occupied. So,
and how easy is it to obtain a travel or tourism or business visa to visit the Republic of Georgia?
That's a good question. And I like answering that question because we have a free visa regime, basically with a lot of countries, and you can see the list of the countries if you go on our website as well. But American citizens or even citizens of other countries that have a valid green card or a valid U.S. visa do not have to have a separate Georgian visa to travel to Georgia and stay there up to a year. So it's very easy, whether it's for tourist purposes or whether it's for the purposes of going and starting your business and so on. We have a lot of people that go travel and stay for more than 6 months or a year, and then obviously you can request an extension and so on. So in that side, we're very liberal. Like I was mentioning during our presentation, we have also a visa-free regime with the European Union, which means that we Georgians and citizens of Europe can travel. Citizens of countries in Europe can travel to Georgia without any visas. And it's getting there. I guess I should add, getting there is very easy. We unfortunately we don't have a direct flight from the United States yet. We're working on that, and hopefully soon we will be able to offer that to travelers from the United States. But right now, I mean, with one connection from any cities, I usually fly through Turkish Airlines through Istanbul, from San Francisco here and Texas. I know that many cities have direct flights to many locations in Europe, and Georgia as well has direct flights to many cities throughout Europe. So that connection is very easy, through Paris, through Amsterdam, through Germany, different cities in Germany, through Turkey, through UK. So many different destinations through Ukraine and so on. So it's very easily accessible. I mean, it is a long flight, especially from the United States, but I think, if you get a short connection within 17 to 18 hours, you can be in Georgia.
Thank you. And I'd like to recognize Dr. Cheryl Cross, our partner at the Kozmetsky Center. Go ahead, Dr. Cross.
Well, thank you so much for that outstanding briefing that you provided to us, Levan. It was excellent, and especially I feel your energy and your commitment and enthusiasm, which means a lot too. And I can imagine that you're doing so much to support your nation here in the United States. And Georgia's fortunate to have you here representing your country. I really mean that. And I think a couple of things, what we really want to do is, beyond providing an overview for students and to make the students and the business community here more aware of some of the opportunities, if we could talk about some concrete possibilities, because I think we're going to start coming out of, hopefully we're all praying that we come out of this pandemic, and that international travel and study abroad for students, which has been so impacted by the developments in the last couple of years, that we can resume some of that activity. And I think you mentioned, the growth in Austin, the high-tech industry, the opportunities that are here. And I know Ben has extensive experience in this area, but hosting delegations and groups of business leaders, maybe from Georgia in the future, where we can bring together the Texas business community with some of your colleagues. And you said you've done some of that, but I mean, that would be a great way to kind of explore opportunities. And even though Georgia is a long way from Texas in this high-tech virtual world that we live in nowadays, I don't know that that's such a barrier anymore, because I think we can overcome a lot of those factors. And as you said, Georgia sits in a very unique geographic position, sort of being the gateway or a bridge between Asia on the one hand, Europe, and that Belt and Road Initiative coming from China, coupled with developments. I know we're going to be going through it's very unpredictable right now what's happening with Russia, Eurasia, Europe, but I think we have to keep thinking ahead. And on the study abroad side of this and student programs, I mean, considering opportunities for the next generation of business students, I'm wondering, do you have opportunities available now, let's say for students at St. Edward's that might want to spend a study period in Georgia? And could we talk about the possibilities of building something more routine, maybe like a summer seminar in global business, or a number of other topic areas moving forward? I think there's a lot to be said for bringing our students together and fostering those opportunities. And I think it's one thing that we could do here in Austin to really help and supporting the ties and understanding between our nations. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on those issues.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cross. Great points overall across the board, and thank you for your great comments here. I think it's very important to build a partnership between the educational facilities, educational institutions between Georgia and the United States. You mentioning St. Edward's University and kind of working towards that and building maybe a good relationship. And we as a mission here would be very open to fostering that communication and that partnership. Now, there are programs that students can participate in. I can reach out to the universities in Georgia and request the specific programs where students can sign up online and participate in Georgia or come for the study abroad programs. We definitely do have inbound Georgians going through different programs that the U.S. government offers in partnership with the Georgian government to offer Georgian students to come here. And as you mentioned, one of the top priorities for us is to explore the opportunities with different universities to start with the exchange programs and then think about Georgia as a destination for a branch for the university, or actually initiate new programs that we can definitely work on. So I would encourage you and us to continue this conversation and find the mutually interesting avenues, like in different fields, in different fields of study. On that side, I mean, right now there is a very big boom in Georgia on tech, innovation, and STEM education. There's a lot of attention that Georgian government is paying to developing STEM education and then for vocational training in Georgia, because we realize that this is something that is necessary and Georgia lacks per se, but is working on to build that up. As I mentioned during the presentation, Georgian government created an agency, Georgian Innovation and Technology Agency, which is not only is work to create the environment, to create the ecosystem, the innovation and technology ecosystem, but also works with students, works with universities, works to mentor, to educate as well, other than just provide like grants or support activities for the companies itself. But actually, they dive in and create that ecosystem where students or individuals trying to develop their businesses and they have no idea how to do so, they provide mentorship and so on. Also, I would mention there are several universities in Georgia that have strong programs and have strong ties with international foreign universities, and I can definitely provide some of the reach out and provide some of the programs that we've done in the past. But I also want to mention BTU. There's a newly developed university, a business tech university, that is focusing on channeling its resources towards educating students on best business practices using the new innovative ways and new technology. So I think that way is that direction is also very important for us as well. Of course, history, geography has been very popular subjects. Being in Georgia for students, being in that realm, being an old country, rich history and the cultural heritage and rich culture, offers a lot of incentives for students to travel there. And I mentioned there are several universities in Georgia that have branches, one of them being the San Diego State University that opened their branch, if I'm not mistaken, already 5 years ago. And they're operating really well there. So, like I said, to go over each program, it will be hard for me to do so here right now, but I would be happy, to continue this discussion and exchange ideas on how we can connect St. Edward's University to the universities there and exchange students and the knowledge and experience that's there. So definitely.
I know, Mortada, you did have a question there.
Yes. Thank you again for a great presentation. The video was just awesome. I'm going to put Georgia on my future travels. Absolutely.
I hope so.
And Levan, you highlighted something extremely important in terms of foreign direct investments and the attractiveness of Georgia as a hub or a regional hub for opportunities like that. More in particular, the country's investment in logistics and infrastructure. I think that's very attractive for investors, future investors, and also the trade agreement with Europe. How much of that you see that is reflecting on the growth in the foreign direct investment? That's one. And the second question I have, given what's going on right now in the region, and we know that the oil and gas industry kind of impacted worldwide because of this situation, do you see any other sectors that have been impacted with that?
Of course. Mortada, thank you very much again. Thank you for the question. Certainly, being a small country, again, we rely on foreign direct investment. We rely on trade with our partners. So one of the decisions for Georgia, and obviously we are not a big oil or gas producing country. We are a transit country for Caspian oil and gas, and we work very closely with our partners in Azerbaijan to develop such projects, even from the beginning of the 90s. To make sure that we provide effective transit of those resources to Europe. However, we realize that on that sense, we also need to invest in the developing of different sectors, right? Like renewable energy. In Georgia, there is an abundance of rivers. The rivers can support hydropower plants, and the hydropower generation in Georgia, I think, is very important. And I think that's one of the strategic directions that the Georgian government is taking to make sure that we are not reliant on a neighbor in particular throughout. So we hope that sector, because right now we're only utilizing about 25 to 30% of Georgia's hydro potential. So I think that area is still, there's a lot of room to expand. To give you an idea, we were a country in the 90s where we didn't have electricity, throughout the week. Basically, I had to study over candlelight and so on. And we've come a long way. Georgia has developed tremendously. Now we export electricity several months out of a year when we have more generation from the hydropower. We're also looking into the developing of wind and solar power. We actually have a Georgian company that is expanding to the United States, is actually expanding through Texas. And we are happy and looking forward to learn more where the company will establish its base in Texas and to see their development throughout the United States of the solar panels. They are the solar panel manufacturers. So those are the areas that we're trying to increase as well. Now, you mentioned and you asked, what was affected. Of course, with the whole the pandemic, the trade was stopped. The remittances that had a big part. I mean, the tourism sector got hit a lot. I mean, you can imagine all the countries have shut down. There was no interaction, and tourism was actually one of the biggest contributors to the revenue source of Georgia. As I mentioned, 9.4 million tourists flowing into the country, and we were on the right trajectory to go to 10 and 11 and 12 million as more people were kind of word of mouth and the promotion, and more people were learning about Georgia. But Georgia's working really hard to promote right now the reopening of the country and make sure that we attract the right companies to invest in the right sectors. Manufacturing has been one of the sectors that also took a little bit of a hit, but not as much as the other sectors. And we do have some international companies like Zara and different ones, and Tommy Hilfiger, that are in Georgia, that are producing and manufacturing textiles in Georgia, but also with other products. Manufacturing in Georgia actually opens a lot of doors, right? I mentioned the free trade agreements that we have. Georgia took a position saying, okay, we're not an oil and gas rich country, so we have to make sure that we are a strategic and reliable partner for our partnering countries. And in that sense, you said, how does that help? The free trade agreements, and they do help a lot, not only on the trade side, where we saw after signing the free trade agreements with different countries, the trade went up, exports went up. Of course, the imports went up as well, but we see that it's also a measure of security. And when you have strategic partnerships with different countries, such as the United States, such as European Union, countries in the European Union, such as our partners in the region, it adds additional security mechanisms, the free trade agreements, the association agreement. And we really hope that Europe realizes that Georgia, Ukraine, and other countries are very valuable for them to join the European Union and become part of that alliance, the NATO, as well as the European Union. So hopefully we're on the right path, and we like to think so as well, and we always try to implement reforms that puts us closer to that direction. And part of the association agreement with the European Union was the approximation of all standards in Georgia to the European Union. And as you know, Europe has one of the most strict standard and high standards when it comes to, product exchange, when it comes to trade, and so on. So we're proud that Georgia is moving in the right direction, and we'll continue to do so.
Sure, we definitely have to continue the discussion on all these.
Yes, I'm looking forward to working with the World Affairs Council for sure.
And especially was also St. Edwards and all the things that Dr. Cross mentioned. Yes. I think that's really fantastic. Perhaps one more thing, Levan, if you please indulge me. I have students here attending this session today in the global marketing class, and some of them interested really in Georgia as a destination for their project. I hope your office would not mind at all if we could call on your staff and get their assistance sometimes or counseling sometimes for them to finish their projects on Georgia as a destination for foreign investment.
Well, we would be offended if they don't reach out to us. So please encourage your students to reach out to us. We would be happy, whatever opportunity we have or resources that we have from our office here, we would be happy to support. I'm sure that the embassy in Washington, D.C., our consulate general in New York would also be very happy to engage. And we are working very closely with each other to create this larger network. Absolutely. And we would be happy to use the resources within that network to help the students, in their projects. And of course, hopefully host them in Georgia. And like I said, it's a very safe and interesting environment for students. I've never seen anybody that went and came back and said that they didn't like it, but I'm biased. So you have to go and judge for yourself how it works. So.
We appreciate your generosity, Consul General. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Consul General Beridze. You all are on the right trajectory. Just having 10% growth in GDP is very impressive. In comparison with other nations, by far. I hope that continues for you all for many years. Mm-hmm. And on behalf of the World Affairs Council of Austin, which is a member of the Businesses for Georgia program, we're really looking forward to growing that outreach even further in our region.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you very much for having me here and allowing me the time to discuss with you, Georgia.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to meet you, and we look forward to continued collaboration. Let's make this not our first, but the beginning of ongoing productive partnership and collaboration. We really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Dr. Cross, thank you again for the invitation, for hosting me. And I think this is a beginning of a great friendship. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And anyone that wants to stick around may. But I urge all of our attendees today to keep an eye on the World Affairs Council of Austin's calendar of events, to register for our monthly Globalist series of informal discussions and social discussions on interesting topics. Our next Globalist discussion will take place on Thursday, March 17th at 6:30 p.m. I also posted, there will be an ambassadorial briefing at 2:30 today from the Baltic states, discussing the Ukraine situation. So anyone that might be interested in that is welcome to participate on that Zoom later this afternoon. And I thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon.